What's up guys, in today's video we're going to go over my latest tournament performance in the DreamHack Summer. So I got put in a group together with Hellraiser, Lambo, Serral, Mana, Art, Sortov and Sol, and my first opponent would be Mana. And in my mind this was already one of the most important matches that I would need to play, because I look at the people in this group and I think Lambo, Serral, myself, Mana and Sol are going to be slightly above the other guys. So most likely there's going to be a bottom three, which are not completely set. Like, it's possible that they take maps or take games from the higher level guys, but it's really important to beat those bottom three, and then you need to take out one or preferably even two of the higher level guys to make sure that you advance out of a group. If you want to get top two, you probably need to go something like 6-1 or 5-2, and knowing my own PvZ, that didn't seem extremely reasonable. So I figured that this first match against Mana and the match that I had against Sol were going to be some of the key matches, as long as I managed to beat the bottom three. So in the first game against Mana, I start up with a 1-gate expand in order to kind of trick him into... I kind of was hoping that he would attack me. I follow up with a Stargate, try to get some map control, and from there on out kind of try to control the pace of the game. He went for a Cybercore block, and it turned out a pretty okay situation for me. I think after the early game, I'm in the type of situation where I'm in slight control of the game. I'm not light years ahead, but I just have slightly more units, slightly more probes, and I'm in control. And in PvP, very often it's all about control. After a mid game in which not much happened, I chase him around for a bit on the map, I get a couple of good disruptor shots, and I eventually end up in this position that we currently see, is where I have more disruptors than him, I have a crap ton of stalkers, I'm up 30-40 supply, I'm up an upgrade, and I also have 30 more workers than him. So just an overall very good position, and by kind of chasing him around, shooting my disruptor shots, being rather conservative in my movement, I managed to completely destroy him in this fight, and kind of in a nice and easy way managed to win game number 1. So I have a very important game number 1 already to my name. And the second map is on Jagannatha, and I once again tried to go for the 1-gate expand. I scouted that he went for Proxy Stargate, but for whatever reason in my head I thought it would be completely fine if I wouldn't get a battery in the main base, and if I wouldn't get a second Stalker. So now my Void Ray isn't done yet, his Oracle comes in and he's going to be doing a lot of damage. He takes out 5-6 workers, which might not sound like a massive deal, but if it's this early on in the game, actually kind of is a massive deal. He gets ahead in workers, he has map control with his oracles, and he can straight up go into Phoenixes, which is something I can't really do because I opened with Void Ray, not sure what's happening. His follow-up is just going to be a game in which he keeps a lot of control. He follows up with Charge, Phoenix push, and I just don't really have the army composition or the sheer numbers to deal with this. The Phoenixes are kind of owning everything in the air, and the Charger's kind of owning everything in the ground. And once I have to give up this third base, from there on out this game just becomes extremely difficult. So I'm trying my best to keep my third base going, but sadly it is not quite going to be enough, even though Mana almost decided to go into my natural, which definitely would have been a mistake. And I lose a bunch of workers here, and eventually lose this base, and with that base the game. In game number 3, I once again play 1-gate expand, and this time Mana decided to go for a Proxy Nexus with Proxy Dark Shrine. Luckily for me, I managed to scout that with my probe. I had a feeling something was weird, and something was weird indeed. And from this point on, I'm actually kind of in control in this game. I am slightly up in workers. I have a probe on the other side of the map, which builds a pylon in a very nice location, which I'm going to be using later on for a quick adept counterattack. And then eventually I even add on the Dark Shrine. And once I add on that Dark Shrine, then this happens. DTs go in, start killing a lot of workers. As you see, I'm also up in upgrades. My +2 finishes before his +1 finishes. And I'm still in a worker lead as well. And I'm also in just an overall supply lead, so a very good situation for me. At this point on, he decides to attack into me, I decide to attack into him, we get a semi-base trade, but he doesn't really stand a chance there. As I just kind of have way more stuff, I have way better upgrades, and I just end up winning this game with a pretty big supply advantage. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I already got a big fat dub on the board, and it's against one of the top 5 players, which means that if I just win all my matches and everyone kind of does their job, I'm going to be in a really good position. However, it's kind of going to suck for me in the next 3 games because I'm going to be playing against Serral, Sol, and then Lambo. So I get all the top players first and then get the slightly weaker players. So second match is against Serral. And against Serral it is indeed. First game I tried to open up with some Glaive Adept pressure, but sadly Serral was a little bit better than than I expected. And he managed to scout everything properly, went for a double gas response with Ravagers and Links, completely kind of blasted my push here, killed a lot of my Adept. Sure, it looks like my worker count is still ahead, but he gets to build workers for free for the next 5 minutes or so. He's getting spores with it as well, but even though economically it looked good, I don't ever really get going in this game. I try to do some type of desperation push with Disruptor, Archon, Stalker, and a couple of Storms, but the Banelings all detonate on top of my Disruptors. The Micro isn't there, but even if the Micro would have been there, I doubt this really would have been able to do anything. Serral just kind of completely crushes me, and I just lose game number 1. A little bit slow to GG there, I have to admit. Take a big gulp of my water. Then in the second game, I kind of get queen walked. Like nothing actually happened before this. I get queen walked, and I really wasn't quite ready. I was lacking, I think, 1 or 2 cannons extra at the natural. I think I built too many cannons at my third base. My first Disruptor hit queens rather than hitting Ravagers, which is always a mistake because queens don't actually kill things. They just keep things alive. So if I can take out Ravagers, his DPS gets lower and I win more time, which is obviously the thing I want to be doing. Yeah, he just kind of breaks my natural and he's semi-breaking my third base at the same time, and I lose that game as well. At this point, I'm not really that worried. I'm 1-1. And I probably just lost against the best player in the group. I still have to play against Sol and Lambo up next. I would love to win at least one of the two in order to kind of settle myself as at least a top 4 player, but even have some potential at still getting that top 2 finish that I would really like and allowing myself to get into the higher bracket, into the bracket stage. But you see I'm not in that bad of a spot. And my third match was going to be against Sol. Sadly, that match didn't go too well, at least didn't start too well. The first game, I get kind of blasted by his initial pressure. A couple of Hellions, couple of Mines, couple of Marines. All of them join forces, and they deal so much damage that it feels like at this point the game is pretty much unplayable. Later on, a Raven shows up, and he just kind of owns me the moment we have any type of fight. And yeah, I just kind of get blasted in this game. A very demoralizing game. The second game, it starts with an eBay block. And my response against the eBay block was honestly kind of mediocre. I didn't proxy a Stargate. I didn't pull workers fast enough. I wasn't aware of it very quick either. So I just kind of end up being really far behind. He plays triple CC behind it. I went for Stargate, which is probably the best build order for him to get based on what I'm doing as well. So overall, just kind of really sucked this game. He ends up going for a push here, big push with, I believe this was not even +2 done yet. Does have some ghosts though. He might have enhanced shockwaves as well. He just moves forwards and he kind of just EMPs me and completely blasts me here in this fight. Like I just don't have the units. My Colossi don't have thermal range. I don't have a super battery because my Nexus isn't even done yet. And I'm still down workers here. I'm down 5-6 workers, which, yeah, it's just overall a really bad situation. And sadly, I need to tap out and I lose my second match. Now, my dreams of getting a top 2 position have pretty much disappeared as I realized that I either need to get really lucky to get second, but most likely if I lose to Sol and I lost to Serral, it's going to be really tricky for me to get second place. So I'm really focusing on trying to stay in. My next match is against Lambo. I prepare hard for it. I mainly put a lot of effort into learning how to beat Queen Walks. And in my mind, I'm really well prepared against the Queen Walk. So let's see how it goes. Well, my preparation for the Queen Walk in game number 1 seemed pretty freaking useless, as he completely skipped the mid-game part and just kind of straight went into Mutalisk. I am semi-prepared for Mutalisk, and I did think about Mutalisk and what to do against him, but it just felt like I was getting outplayed. It wasn't like I wasn't ready. It wasn't like I didn't scout it. It just felt like my opponent was faster than me. And this is an annoying feeling, but it's also one of the feelings where it's like, well, like what really am I supposed to do? I can just magically increase my skill all of a sudden. And I just kind of get blasted in the first game by his multitasking and his multi-prong. And yeah, it feels bad. And in the second game, a kind of similar thing happens. He once again goes into a Muta and then follows up with some Mutaling Ravager Bane and just kind of kills my forward base. And it feels like, wow, like in my head, I kind of knew what was happening. I was kind of prepared, but he just was better. His macro was so good, and just kind of owns me 2-0, and I'm starting to feel a little bit down on myself and a little bit afraid. So at this point, I'm 1-3 in the group, and it's starting to dawn on me that I can't really lose any other match anymore. Even then, I'm a little bit dependent on the results of others as well. Mana can't beat Lambo or Serral or Sol preferably. And then I should be fine, but it still isn't completely like, wow, I'm safe even if I go 6-0 in the next 3 matches. I know the next 3 opponents are weaker, but 2 of them are PvP, which is always tricky, and then 1 of them is Sword of, which I kind of always struggle with. So first match is going to be against Art, who's probably the easiest one of the 3 and is also playing out of Korea. And then we have it. My game's against Art. He starts with a 1-base Blink all-in, which, through the help of some cheeky hallucinations, actually managed to fend off relatively well. I go into Blink myself, get a cannon, get a battery. His build honestly just felt pretty bad. I mean, I managed to hold being 42 workers and having a Forge and a Twilight. He does one trick twice, where I only have a single pylon, he just kind of blinks on top of it and right-clicks it. I'm like, oh, crap, there we go again, which is about to happen, but I don't know, like probes are so good against Stalkers that in this type of situation, once you have Blink yourself, you can't really lose anymore. Then in the second game, he gets slightly ahead. I decide to go into Disruptor, because I know once I get into Disruptor, I usually win this type of games against players slightly lower MMR than me, and that's kind of exactly what happens. He tries to attack into me because he wants to win the game. I just use my Disruptor, super battery, and I kind of destroy him in this fight. I followed up with a counter attack, and he honestly doesn't really stand a chance. So some scary moments in the games, but overall, I mean, a very clean 2-0 win for me, and I'm starting to get some hope again that I can get out of this group. At this point, I'm 2-3 in the group. Still have to play against Hellraiser and Sword of. I'm starting to realize at this point, as long as Serral beats Mana and I win my next 2 matches, that I'm 100% through. So everything is kind of in my own hands because I trust Serral to beat Mana. And from there on out, as long as I beat Hellraiser and Sword of, it should just be good for me. Alright, the first game I apologize for. Probably the most boring game in the world. Literally nothing happened up until this point. I'm just up 30 supply because he got Robo Bay, and he had a little bit of money in the bank. And he had too many workers, so I just A-move across the map and I kind of just kill him. So yeah, that game really was nothing. Ooh, look at that. I'm so funny when I win. That was hilarious. But yeah, like nothing really big happened, it felt like there. Then in the second game, it's a bit different. Once again, I do get a little bit of a lead. I have a little bit of money in the banquets because I want to pull off the next move. I'm going to fly into his main base with an Immortal with 10 gateways and or 2 Immortals, 1 Prism, and then 10 Zealots, warp them in. And I was thinking, should I go for the Forge or what do I really want to go for? I end up deciding to just kind of go for Zealots and other things. The micro there isn't too great, I have to admit, but I do manage to keep all of my Immortals alive, which helps later on when I do this run by onto his 5th base while simultaneously am attacking his 3rd base. A lot of workers are going down. I get some massive hits with these Disruptors, and from this point on the game is pretty much over. Hellraiser at this point doesn't realize yet, but once I hit the next Disruptor shot and he recalls part of his army once again to this base, he realizes, hey, wait a second, I can't actually hold this everything anymore. He does need to tap out, and that's exactly what he does. At this point in the tournament, I'm really happy. I managed to beat Hellraiser, I managed to beat Art. I only have Sword of left, and at this point I realized that if I just win a single map, I am through to the next round, and I make it into a bracket stage for the first time since 2019, 2020. I did not make any of the bracket stage, so I'm very hyped. I prepare very hard for Sword of. Let's see if it pays off. Alright, once again I focused a lot on defending Queen Alins and figuring out what he likes. I saw that he kind of likes either playing some type of Swarm host. I know he's kind of good with that Swarm host. Into Lurker though, not the super aggressive Swarm host. At least he doesn't tend to play that super aggressively. I've seen him play a little bit of Mura. I open up with 2 Oracle, 1 Void Ray, go into Disruptors from there, and quickly into Blink. I actually temporarily forget my Templar Archives, which forces me to keep a lot of gas in the bank, and there were some scary moments, but Going into the later stages of this game, I get a couple of decent disruptor hits, and I manage to walk across the map with a very big army involving 2 carriers as well. There's no real anti-air except a couple of corruptors from him. My +1's already done, and with this big stasis ward, either double stasis ward in the back, half of his army isn't even fighting in this fight. My Archons are absolutely wrecking everything, and there's just not enough banelings here to really do anything. So after I win this fight, I now am basically, at this point, I'm just happy. I'm excited. I'm like, okay, I managed to qualify for the next round. I still, of course, want to win the entire series. Just 1-0 is good enough to qualify, but if you get the 2-0, you get another $125. So in game number 2, I decide to go for a glaive build, which I accidentally hit way too late, but it still seemed kind of fine. I get a lot of damage done with these initial shade-in, 6 workers. His roaches seemed a little bit late. And the 2 adepts in the natural take out a couple more workers because he wasn't quite paying attention there. So I end up actually getting, 13 workers? 12 workers? 12 workers, and not even losing too many adepts. I'm up 10 currently. And yeah, I'm feeling kind of confident. He follows this up by going into an infestation pit while I'm going for a robo way. And because his creep spread is kind of bad, this is not going to be an issue for me. And as you can see, supplies are very close. I have disruptors, I'm flanking, I'm zoning. And he can't even get swarm hosts close to my base to use any of his locust waves. And here, the final big disruptor shots. He doesn't pay attention to the army for 2-3 seconds and bang, big disruptor shot. Can even blink forward at this point, which is exactly what I'm doing here, and don't even need to use the disruptors anymore. I just completely destroy him. I'm outmining him. I have a better army composition. I'm gonna get better upgrades, and I win. I win the game. I win the series. And with that, I end up in a 4th location in this group. Not the greatest location, especially knowing that I need to play a 3rd place player in the other group, and sadly I actually, in my eyes, I get the hardest opponent that I possibly could have gotten, and I get showtime in the first round of the bracket stage. Now that is going to be played upcoming Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the ESL stream, so if you want to have a look at it live, then be sure to check in there. Otherwise I'm sure I'll make a little video about it after I completely destroy him 4-0 in a best of 5. So yeah, that's actually going to be it. Pretty happy with my result. I haven't been able to, even though the result isn't great or brilliant, it's just nice to at least get to a stage where I feel like I belong. The top 16 in Europe. I mean, I think I deserve that, guys. If you also think I deserve that, don't forget to smash the like button, hit the thumbs up, make the thumb blue, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Were you surprised by me losing any of the games? Were you appalled or shocked by my level of play? Keep me up to date, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.